There we go. And it's loud now.
It is loud. It should be loud. This song needs volume.
Right? Well, hello everyone. Welcome to WYD Rocks. We are back with another episode looking at all things WYD as we prepare for Lisbon 2023. I'm Dario from worldyouth.com, joined by my good friend Deacon Pedro from WYDcentral.org. Welcome.
Hello. How's everybody doing? How's your Lent going?
Lent is going good so far. I've done the Ember Wednesday.
You do that,
yes,
eh?
That was still do that. Try to practice it a little bit. A little Italian tradition.
I don't know.
Myself
Now
up.
we're gonna end up talking about cold showers now, right?
No, I take it back. I'm not doing Exodus 90 this year.
Okay, you're not doing. Okay, so the Ember Days is not
cold
just
showers. No cold showers. Although this year I'm doing this thing called Cana 90, which is kind of cool because it's a little bit on the preparing
for marriage.
Not preparing for marriage, but being a strong marital couple, right?
Oh, I like that.
At the same time, being a good father to my children, a good husband to my wife. And how do we do that in a different soul? So I look at like how I can be a better child of God, being holy and so on. But then I have to look at it also in my vocation. I think sometimes we forget how to renew our vocations, our duties in our vocations, and our actions in our vocations. We're so good about, I need to go to mass, I need to go to confession, but then how can I be more present?
Oh yeah, of course.
For other things, right?
Of course, and ideally, all these practices that we do should lead you to be better at other things, improve your marriage, your family life, work, etc. So that's good stuff. I've started. I think last time we spoke that it takes me like 2 weeks into Lent to figure out kind of what I'm going to do or what I'm not going to do. But I'd like to add something, and finding the right spiritual reading, is really important for me. And I mean, I didn't intend to, but I think that that's usually the best way to go when you kind of find you're already reading something. You're like, you know what? This is great Lenten reading. There's a book by Michael O'Brien, his latest book called Babylon, and it's a dramatization. That's how he imagined the life of the prophet Ezekiel, which is, and of course, so many readings during Lent are from the prophet Ezekiel. So it's making me want to look at Ezekiel and kind of pray through Ezekiel as I read this novel. So if anybody's interested, Michael O'Brien's Babylon, the life of the prophet Ezekiel.
I'm really looking forward to hearing when you get to the Valley of the Dry Bones. What is that?
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean? Or even the idea that the water will pour forth from the side of the temple when it's fully been rebuilt.
Yeah, we're not there yet. Ezekiel is still just a 25-year-old in this novel.
Before he gets
quite there yet. Yes, he hasn't started. But there's this whole relationship between Ezekiel and Jeremiah, because I didn't realize that they actually were contemporaries.
Yes,
Jeremiah is much older than Ezekiel, but they lived at the same time in the same place. And so Michael O'Brien imagines this relationship and what that's all about, because people did not like Jeremiah, I can tell you that.
Well, but he was also responsible for hiding the Ark of the Covenant, and then no one ends up finding out where.
Well, do we know that as a fact, or is that like
it's legend, right? What we say, what we call in the Catholic Church pious tradition, because we don't know exactly.
Yeah, we don't.
But it could be.
It could be.
Even the idea of like Helen of the Cross bringing all the relics, and then we have the piece of the true cross. And I love when people say, well, the piece of the true cross. What if we put all the pieces together? We would have one gigantic cross,
1,000
right?
crosses.
Yeah.
No, Jeremiah did a really good job at hiding that Ark of the Covenant, because even Indiana Jones couldn't.
Oh, good grief, right? Indiana Jones
found it.
Yeah, it's in some storage warehouse somewhere in America. God bless the United States. We always have to bring it back to the United States. Like, it's always the United States' fault.
Bring it back.
They're hiding it, right?
Because I was going to say that's a good link with the meeting today, but the meeting today, I got the wrong meeting, because it's meeting number 7 that actually looks at the World Youth Day cross.
Yes.
But meeting number 6 doesn't. So,
but meeting number 6 looks at all the crazy logistical nightmares. I mean, can you imagine Jeremiah having to kind of logistically plan out how he was going to confront the Israelites and trying to remind them, hey guys, we know we're not made for this place. We're made for
for
to go back
something
to
else.
our homeland.
That's a
We're made to.
good. Okay, you know what? You just changed my whole perspective of World Youth Day because we always talk about how it's like organized chaos, and if you can't look at the logistics of World Youth Day and not like just think it's chaotic. But if we think that we don't, this is not where we belong. This is just a glimmer of what heaven will be like, and heaven will not be chaos and chaotic. But yeah, that's what meeting six is about, is to kind of understand. I like it, the prophetic dimension of the World Youth Day, but that's like the logistical nightmare of World Youth Day. And but then there's also, of course, the miracles and the
Yeah.
being called to rise up. So I think that that's uh, important.
Absolutely, absolutely it is. And let's take a look at, let's jump right into meeting six,
Let's do
shall
it.
we? So let me get that meeting six right up here so you guys can all see it. For those of you guys joining us on video, obviously those of you guys in audio, I'm sorry. This is meeting six we're looking at. And meeting six kind of draws hand in hand with this whole idea of coming together, but also being prepared to come together. What does it mean to rise up and show yourself?
Yes, which is to me is interesting. So we've been looking at all these instances where Jesus, or actually not just Jesus, but in scripture it says to rise up, because Mary arose, she rose and went with haste. And then yeah, all the other ones that Jesus heals someone, it says rise up, or little girl rise up, or young man rise up. But this one, and usually, sorry, I was going to say that usually it's Jesus heals somebody. I mean, that was a couple weeks ago. We looked at he healed someone and says, rise up, take up your mat and walk. But in this case, Jesus says to the man, rise up, before he heals him. And it's like, rise up, come and stand here in front of everybody. So that's what we're going to look at today, which is kind of an interesting uh, perspective on the whole rising up. So we get ready. I'm not going to give too much of the background because I think anybody that is leading the meetings needs to look at the leader's guide to just make
Yes.
sure, because there's some things that the leader needs to know that the participants can't know. So I'm not going to give it away here.
But it's
But
also a good reminder that by now in meeting six, you should kind of have a flow of things,
yes,
right? So it's not like a new surprise to you. Hopefully you are using that leader's guide. We're just showing you guys what everyone would see.
and again, and also to give you an idea of kind of what the general theme is, and then you can customize, take, add, do different things. This one, there's a whole activity with blocks, and it doesn't say what the blocks are. I was imagining like Lego blocks, but I think it could be just like wooden blocks or anything that you can build something. So the idea is that you were building like the World Youth Day environment, or building the city, or imagining the city. So there's an activity with the blocks that I'm not going to go into too much detail because I want to be careful not to give away some important parts of it. And there's also the icon of Our Lady. Maybe Dario, you can explain to us about Salus Populi Romani.
Yeah.
This icon, I think we've spoken about the icon, but it's one of the two main World Youth Day symbols.
Yeah, so the icon was first introduced to World Youth Day back in 2000, on the year 2000, in the Great Jubilee year, right? When
Yeah.
St. John Paul II brought in this beautiful image that, according to our tradition, and again, going back to tradition, right? Where we talked about St. Helena of the Cross bringing all these wonderful things. But according to tradition, this was an icon painted by St. Luke himself with his hands, of the beautiful image of Mary, right? That was brought to Rome. Not only was the message of Jesus brought to Rome, but even his mother brought to Rome. Hence, she became the image of the people of Rome, right? The image of beauty and innocence and of faithfulness to the people of Rome. Not only that, but then don't forget that that image is found in a beautiful church called Santa Maria Maggiore, the first major basilica church named after Mary for herself, right?
Mhm.
Mary Major.
St. Mary Major.
Right? And right next to that church, not too far from that church, is another church called St. Alphonsus, right? St. Alphonsus, after St. Alphonsus of Liguria, right? But St. Alphonsus, and there at the very central nave of that church, on the high altar, you'll find an image of Our Lady of Perpetual Help, which again, according to tradition, that St. Luke himself had a role in painting that image, so that people can understand that Mary has always been like the help of Christians. This is a beautiful title given to Mary by, even by Don Bosco. St. John Bosco was a big fan of that title, of help of Christians, or
Yes.
perpetual help of in Italian, what we call Santa Maria di Pronto Soccorso,
Yes.
like an emergency, like if you have a request, an
The
emergency, always go
succor.
to the mother, right?
Yep.
And so you have this beautiful connection going back to the wedding at Cana, where Jesus was present with his mother, and his mother pleaded on behalf of the servants there that they ran out of wine.
Yeah, exactly.
That
So
image is such a beautiful image of just simplicity.
yeah,
Yet,
and I'm surprised that they actually, I mean, I haven't scrolled down here, that they actually don't have the image of the icon here in the study guide,
not
in
not
the
not in the
meeting guide.
planning guide either, but it would be
But
probably
the
good
idea is that if you
to
have
bring out.
an image of the icon, that will be used throughout the meeting. Um, and it's, so we've talked about the World Vitae cross, but alongside the World Vitae cross, the World Vitae symbols is the cross, and then this icon, there it is,
There you go. There's
the icon of Mary. Um, uh, and a reminder that we don't just, it's not a World Vitae is not just a pilgrimage to the cross or alongside the cross, but it's alongside Mary as well.
Yep.
So the meeting begins with this activity about blocks, and the idea is that we're inviting participants to imagine what the environment of World Youth Day is going to be, and that I think is a very good exercise, because I think especially people who haven't been will have, like, I don't know what to expect. So it's good to kind of imagine it, and there's an activity that helps them do that. And then also, how are you going to impact that environment? And I'm not talking about environment, like throwing garbage, although that can be part of it, but it's like, so there's an environment, and you're going to be called to make an impression or an impact, or leave how are you going to leave that space, that place, differently. And then the gospel reading, also from the Gospel of Luke 6, is the reading of the man with the withered hand in the synagogue. And that's when Jesus says to him, rise up and stand here, rise up here and stand in front of everyone. And I can imagine this poor man who's maybe has lives with shame because he's got this hand that he can't use. He's with this disability, and he's being kind of embarrassed by being made to stand in front of everybody in the synagogue. And then even more so, than Jesus puts him on the spot, because Jesus is being criticized for doing work in the Sabbath. And then Jesus responds by asking the man the question, is it good? Is it right to do good or evil in the Sabbath? So that's the gospel reading. And then a very similar, like we've done in other meetings, there's going to be a reflection as to what the reading is, what it meant to you, who do you see, in whom do you see yourself in the reading. It also asks you to meditate on the synagogue, the place of the synagogue. What does it mean? It's a place of assembly. Who was there? What does it mean to have the Sabbath? So these are the little captions that we're seeing here on the screen. What is the synagogue? What is the Sabbath? Who are the doctors of the law? Who are the Pharisees? And then, of course, the man with the paralyzed hand, or the withered hand here. So that's all part of this reflection on the reading. And then the idea that you're being called to stand up, and how is this space? I mean, the fact that this man was healed on the Sabbath in the synagogue is significant. So the space, the place is significant, and how the place and the space and the people who are gathered there for that circumstance, or that ceremony, that situation, affects him, and then how he affects that everyone else in return. So that's part of the reflection for this meeting. And then there's a testimony. I don't know if you had heard about this woman. I had not, Dario. Chiara Petrillo.
Yeah,
Petrillo.
Petrillo, right? Yes, Corbella Petrillo, right? I have a picture of her, actually. Hold on.
So she, yeah, beautiful woman. She, very similar story to Saint Gianna Beretta Molla,
Yes.
in that she chose to continue her pregnancy, even though she had a tumor that she could have been saved, because the tumor could have been removed, but she chose to continue her pregnancy, and of course
It's quite
she
an amazing
died.
story, by the way.
And that was very recent. I don't know what
Yes,
year, but it's very,
she died
very
in
recent.
2000, and I want to say 2009.
something like that.
2007 maybe. It was, so she had met Pope Benedict XVI with a patch on her eye.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and this is a very famous picture of
That's a
her
very
with a
famous
patch with
picture.
her
Yes.
eye, right? Her relationship with her husband, the love that she had with her husband and the love that she had for her family is so extraordinary. But yes, you're absolutely right. There is so she's an amazing story. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about how that connects to this great.
Well, it's an interesting connection. I mean, I'm sure that everybody. I mean, part of these reflections is that there's not one right way. Is that everybody you have a group, and so different people are going to see different things. The way I see it is that, and maybe it's because I've just been watching The Chosen, because Jesus heals everybody that we meet in Scripture. Jesus heals,
Yeah.
but we don't know if he actually didn't heal some people. So the idea that there were some people that Jesus did not heal is an interesting idea, is a very important reflection. And in the case of Chiara Petrillo, I mean, she prayed for healing. She and her husband prayed for healing, and she was not healed. I mean, her baby lived, and so what does it mean to not be healed? I mean, to healed even though you're not healed physically. So I think that that's a very important reflection.
It's a deep one too, because we
Just,
sometimes are looking for externals. When we're looking at things like healing miracles, we want like an external, physical, measurable healing. And we
yeah.
don't see what happens in the inside of the soul of someone who is really struggling and has that conversion of heart that happens on the inside.
And
Like I look at like the healing of Ignatius of Loyola, who we celebrated last year, the 800th anniversary of the
yeah,
bomb that exploded on his leg. He was never fully healed from that, but something changed in him.
yeah, exactly.
And that's something that we need to look at too. And that's something that maybe in the story of Chiara, we can look at, hey, look, maybe just because she wasn't physically healed does not mean that God doesn't work.
No, and I'm sure that her husband now and her children now, the little child that was born because of the sacrifice that she made, I mean, I'm sure that the blessings that they've received and the healing that the husband received,
Yeah.
and of course, God is not thinking about our existence here on earth. God is thinking about heaven. And so that's what he's worried about. But it's hard for us. So that's, I think, a difficult thing. I know I struggle with it. But the idea, and here it is on the screen that we're seeing, is like, rise up, I need you. And what does that mean? Because I need you, and maybe I need you, and that means that I'm not going to heal you. Um, so, for example, if you put yourself in the place of the man in the synagogue who was healed, what would that be like? So that's the type of reflection that the participants are going to be asked to make during this meeting, and what happens, and maybe people have been healed, or people have experienced some type of healing in their life, and they would like to share that with the other participants as they look at their own life. When has Jesus said to you, get up? And not just get up, I heal you, get up, but get up because I need you to stand here in front of everybody so that they can look at you. And then how are you going to make a difference? And then after that sharing, and there's a beautiful prayer there where it says, only God can, but you. It's a beautiful prayer. Only God can create, but you can give value what he created. So it shows how we participate with God in creation and in healing and all the things that he does. There's also a song, which is also a Taizé song that you see here on the bottom left, where it says praise song. So the song goes with the prayer. And then we continue with reading from the catechism, of course, like we always
Before we
do.
did that, I was thinking of a good quote too. If you wanted to use some quotes from Lives of the Saints on this very topic, especially regards to rising up and looking at, Chiara Portillo's story, Corbella Portillo.
Yes, Portillo.
Portillo Cortella. There we go. So it comes from Archbishop Fulton Sheen, and he said this back in the 1970s. He said, "Show me your hands. Do they have scars from giving? Show me your feet. Are they wounded in service? Show me your heart. Have you left a place for divine love?" And I'm thinking, like, at this point, like if you're having a discussion on, how paralyzed are we? And yet, we get paralyzed because we're afraid sometimes of a commitment, or we're afraid of going to an event like a World Youth Day where we're going to be encountering a lot of people. And maybe you're not the extrovert that you thought you were, or maybe you have a lot of wounds in your heart and you don't know how to ask the Lord for healing.
Mhm.
This would be a great reminder that, like Yara, it might not come in the physical, tangible ways. It might come in other ways. And sometimes we just don't need to be caught up on those physical, tangible things.
Yeah, exactly. And it might be a very simple thing. And I know this happens a lot. You have a young person, a young man, a young woman who is shy or who thinks they're introverts and they're not very confident. And then they go to World Youth Day and they come back and they become like these like extroverts and they're confident and they can stand and share their testimony in front of everybody. And the parents just look at them and say, like, I would have never imagined that she would have, stood up there in church in front of 500 people and shared her testimony. And it's because, so there's a transformation. And I think that this meeting today invites us to consider those transformations, how that's going to happen to the participants who go to World Youth Day, but also how that happens to the city, the space. So after these whole reflections, the activity goes back to the blocks and it's incorporated with into that reflection, the icon of Our Lady. And so again, I'm not going to give too much detail because I don't want to spoil it, but to kind of sort of, it does bring it all together at the end with the activity and how we are being changed will impact the place. And I think it's a good consideration to think, how does World Youth Day change a city? And I mean, Dario and you and I we've been to so many World Youth Days and to see, I live in Toronto and I see how World Youth Day transformed Toronto and how it transformed Denver, and so many other places where that have hosted World Youth Day. So it will transform, and not just for that week, although it will transform it for that week, definitely, but how it will transform it forever. So that's kind of part of what this meeting is today. And then you had shown there, I can't remember where it is, but there's also a film that suggested that people can watch. I think if you scroll up a bit more. No, the other way. Yeah, there it is. Continue to deepen on this theme. Watch the film I'm Not Ashamed. And I'm Not Ashamed is the movie about a young woman. You might remember, Dario. She was one of the people that was killed during the Columbine school shooting. So this is the story of her. She was, I think the story is that the shooter, when he arrived at the school, she was outside and he put the gun to her face and said something about like, do you believe in Jesus or something? And she said yes, and then he shot her. So this is the movie. So again, this brings back, it might seem like there's a lot going on in this meeting, but I think that the call is like, how are we invited to be witnesses?
Yeah.
To testify, and it is our sharing what we have allowed Christ to do inside of us will transform others. And that's the call. Arise and stand here in front of everybody. That's it.
And also don't forget the catechism described the comment of one body.
Yes.
Those blocks are so significant to remind your participants that as they do design something with those blocks, they are individual blocks. There's many individual blocks, but when they come together, they make something harmonious.
Yes.
That is what you will see at World Youth Day.
Yes.
You'll see, and I was just thinking of like something that you were saying, Pedro, that when we oftentimes go to these chaotic events, and we call them chaotic because there's a lot going on and it's very stimulating. But the thing is, like, it's such an inspirational thing to your faith to see that, one, you are not alone, that there are countless other young people just like you that are striving for holiness just like you. Yeah. And now you're uniting with them in such a way that you will feel the mystical body of Christ, not just the supernatural one that we refer to as the church triumphant, but now you'll really experience the church militant, walking together. I mean, hence you will walk together
Yeah.
at World Youth Day. You will do things together at World Youth Day. You will eat interesting foods together at World Youth Day.
Yep.
But that experience is shared by the countless other people that will be there with you.
Yeah.
With you.
Yeah.
And then you get to reflect on that beauty. You know, but then the idea is like, do we have the courage to rise up to it? You know, we have to rise up to the occasion. You know, right now, most of you probably have your plane tickets already set up. You already have your lodging already set up. You already have a group already set up, ready to go. And you may be meeting, you know, getting these help these videos are helping you for your preparatory meetings. But in reality, you know, bottom line is like, how excited are your participants to go to World Youth Day?
Yeah.
How excited are they? Are they ready to get up and go? Because I mean, that's kind of like what's going to happen on the day of. You know, what's that feeling and emotion going to be? Is it? And this is what I think that movie, Do Not, you know, Behold, I'm Ashamed, right? Will be part of that, because it's like, you know, it's hard. It's hard to imagine, you know, going to a place where the city that, by the way, only has 1 million inhabitants will double its, you know, population for a week. And as Deacon Pedro mentioned, there is so much beauty that goes on during that week. And the years to come, they will be processing it. As Toronto still processes, Denver still processes. What 93 occurred in Denver is still shaking the foundation of the United States.
Yes.
Toronto is still shaking the foundation of Canada. Cologne is still shaking the foundation of Germany, even though Germany needs a little bit more prayers from our end, right? We don't have to go there, but they know. And for you guys from Germany, we're praying for you. Stay strong, right? And then also for the people of Panama that just had World Youth Day in 2019. What an amazing, how would I call it? An awakening of an empowering of the Holy Spirit, an awakening of the soul. Because you know what, my friends, like in baptism, we've already been given all the necessary skills and tools to go out to do those things that we need to do. And in confirmation, we're empowered to do them. Going to World Youth Day is kind of like a little mini confirmation.
Yeah.
I guess you could call it that way.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, very true. Very true.
There's power there.
Renewal. Yeah, there's power there. And if you're thinking of a song, I mean, we already used this song as a suggestion, but We Are One Body. It's a great song to finish this meeting and to remind ourselves that we are together. So you might feel like you're being called to stand there on your own in front of everybody and everybody's looking at you, but you're not alone. You're being called to stand together, and there's so many others that are being asked to do the same thing.
Yes. And maybe at that World Youth Day, God will answer your prayers.
Yeah.
Maybe he will reveal to you your vocation. Maybe he'll reveal to you your wife or your husband. Or maybe he's calling you to the Catholic priesthood or religious life. Just don't run away from it. Nope. Just do it. Right? I just had to throw that in there. I just had to throw that in there. Because we are at a time, my friends, that, you know, we can no longer be a closet Catholic. You know, and I hate to make that sound so weird. We need to be Catholics in the front lines. You know, as Pope Francis mentioned, you know, in many of his homilies directed towards youth, we need you. We need you. You are not the future. You are the now.
Yeah.
In Christus Vivit yells that. You are the now. Rise up to these occasions. Rise up, right? Stand up. Be present. You know, and I always think of like a roll call. What must it have been like in the roll call? You know, am I going to be like Maximilian Kolbe saying, here I am? You know what? I'm going to step out of line and move forward, because you know what? Who would do that? Yeah. Maximilian did.
Yeah.
Maximilian kid. And look at him, you know, he's a saint because of that. Jose Sanchez del Rio, a beautiful young saint who was patron of World Youth in Panama.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Viva Cristo Rey.
Yeah.
Let me stand up right in front, and I'm not going to be ashamed.
Yeah.
It's challenging, my friends, but it's going to get easier, because when you realize that you're not doing this alone, it's the most beautiful thing will come. The peace will come to your heart, and you will know, right? You will know you're doing the right thing. Keep up the good work, right? Look, we're out of time for this episode. We'd love to continue giving you guys more, but I mean, I don't want to overdo it. And at the same time, there's so much more in the Leader's Guide that I wish that all of you leaders take advantage of looking at that Leader's Guide. We'll put a link to the Leader's Guide below in this video so that you guys can have access to it. Again, I mean, if you're not seeing the Leader's Guide It is in the same website, same page as
Yes.
these catechetical meetings to prepare you for World Youth Day. This concludes meeting 6. We have 3 more to do for you guys to help you set yourselves up for success. And then we're going to get right into the nitty gritty of applications. Like, what do we need to do to get ready for this trip? I mean, one of the things that
Yeah.
I have to remember too is bringing my little meditation booklets, right?
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing for Lent. You know, this cool little meditation booklet made by Magnificat, really cool company.
Mm-hmm.
Check them out. They send some good stuff here and there. But anyways,
They do.
Thank you so
Right,
much
there
for
you go.
joining us on this show. Thank you, Pedro, for your wisdom. And thank you guys for listening in. Of course, we wish you guys a blessed and fruitful Lent.
Yep.
You continue the journey to encounter Christ Jesus on the cross and on every Sunday as we come to Mass together to encounter the risen Lord. From all of us at worldyouth.com and wyDcentral.org, God bless you guys. Take care, and we'll see you back in our next show. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.